The Cygnar military. Cygnar's military prides itself on fielding the most disciplined, best trained, and best armed soldiers in all of Western Immoren. It has earned a reputation for defeating enemies even while greatly outnumbered by emphasizing the quality rather than the quantity of its infantry and warjacks. The military has changed considerably in recent years to incorporate gains from industrialization and mechanica. Indeed, it now stands at the cutting edge of technological ingenuity applied to the art of warfare. Though occasional impressments have routinely occurred throughout the Navy's history, enlistments in the Cygnar Army have long been voluntary, aside from the occasional use of penal battalions under previous monarchs. King Leto adamantly refuses to impose conscription, despite the urging from the Royal Assembly, on the grounds that soldiers forced to fight can never match the resolve of those who freely choose to defend their nation. Most enlisted soldiers begin their military careers among the ranks of long gunners and trenchers. Career soldiers of notable merit have been singled out for advanced training with more specialized service branches. Commissioned officers are no longer drawn exclusively from the ranks of the Cygnar aristocracy, though military traditions still run long and strong in many noble houses. In the modern era, soldiers are more easily rise through the ranks by merit and are frequently allowed to keep brevet ranks earned in the field. In practice, however, attending a military academy is often the best way to ensure an officer's commission. The most prominent military school is the Strategic Academy, which maintains locations in Port Bourne and Caspia. The Strategic Academy provides young officers with a thorough background in military history, tactics, engineering, and philosophy. Its instructors also trains cadets to endure the physical rigors of war and to master the weapons of the modern battlefield. Above all, it creates great leaders by developing its cadets intellectually, physically, militarily, and ethically. In addition to training officers, the Academy staff coordinates arcane instruction and research. They are also tasked to locate, harness, and develop unique talents. For example, the institution oversees the Tempest Academy, which trains Cygnar's renowned gun mages. The Cygnar Army's Warcaster training program comprises the smallest but most vital branch of the Strategic Academy. The Academy also oversees the training of other, less prominent specialists, military alchemists who produce munitions, and field mechanics who master warjack repair and fabrication, number among these. Addendum. Professor Pendrick and the CRS. Corvus University's Professor Victor Pendrick has become a unique asset to Cygnar as an expert in both the Scorn Empire and the Kingdom's Trollkin. The professor served in the Cygnar army as a ranger decades ago, but has accumulated most of his lore as a professor of extraordinary zoology in the university. His expertise on the many non-human species dwelling in the wilds or on the fringes of the kingdom have been invaluable to the CRS, which retains him as a special consultant. He has published numerous volumes on Trollkin and other intelligent species, and he maintains friendships with many of the Cygnar's Creel leaders as a sort of unofficial ambassador. He has performed similar services related to Gatorman tribes, albeit with considerably less influence. The professor's knowledge of the Scorn Empire arises from less than friendly contact. In 606, he was captured by Scorn forces in the Bloodstone Marshes and dragged before Ventor Ralthorn IV in the Abyssal Fortress, where he was made to document Ventor's accomplishments in order to unify the Scorn. This unexpected task gave him the opportunity to tour the foreign nation. In fact, he is the only other human besides Ventor himself to have ever stepped east of the Abyss. In the months of captivity that he spent, Professor Pendrick learned the Scorn language and history and charted the scope of their nation and its geography. He eventually escaped by sea, returned to Cygnar along with the knowledge he had gained. Any communication with the Scorn would by necessity involve Professor Pendrick, not only for his linguistic expertise, but also for his understanding of their society and its militant codes of etiquette. End addendum. The War Council. Initially instituted by King Leto in 595 as an advisory council, but later transitioning to a full war body in 603, the War Council keeps the king informed about the state of the realm. Since the start of the Lylese War, they have been tasked primarily with coordinating and planning Cygnar war efforts. The War Council meets daily in a room dedicated to its use. Maps of troop movements, supply chains, and enemy activities cover most surfaces, and when the council is in session, a steady stream of couriers and reporting officers come and go. In addition to the sovereign himself, the main body of the War Council is comprised of the king's highest chancellors, Warmaster General Auslan Turpin, Supreme Commander of the Cygnar Army, Navach Govan Trent, Supreme Commander of the Cygnar Navy, High Magnus Arlen Claster, court wizard to King Leto, and head of the Caspian branch of the Fraternal Order of Wizardry, Scout General Bolden Reball, commander of the Cygnar Reconnaissance Service, and Lord Treasurer Lars Crumling. Primarch Arceus of the Church of Morrow has an open invitation to attend deliberations, and he occasionally extends Exar Dargol to his stead. Council members are served by numerous adjunct officers and couriers. In addition, civilian specialists in mechanica, engineering, and other fields often brief the council on matters related to their areas of expertise. Frequent additional attendees include Master Mechanic Larsis Polk of the Cygnar Armory and Commander Adept Brick Kinbrace of the Strategic Academy. At present, the War Council is primarily focused on the pending war with Khador on the northern front and preparations for the likely renewal of hostilities with the Protectorate along the eastern border. The Council also regularly assesses Scorn activity along the Black River, Crixian fleet movements, news on the Trocan uprisings, and the potential for treachery among certain Cygnar's restless nobles. Addendum. Warmaster General Auslan Turpin. The current Supreme Commander of the Cygnar Army is Warmaster General Auslan Turpin. In theory, the War Master has total authority over all arms and troops at the disposal of the King of Cygnar. In practice, however, he essentially fills the role of chief military bureaucrat, as Lord Commander Coleman Stryker has become King Leto's primary advisor in the field. Nonetheless, for anyone other than those soldiers serving in the Lord Commander's Storm Division, the War Master General still occupies this top position in the Army's chain of command. Born to a wealthy merchant family that had bought into the aristocracy, Turpin began his career as a lieutenant among the long gunners of the Second Army. By the time of the Lions coup, he had attained the rank of general and grown disenchanted with then King Ventor Ralthorn IV's policies. Turpin numbered among the few first members of Leto's conspiracy, and he played a key role in the success of their coup by organizing efforts outside the capital to ensure the nearest garrisons did not rush to Ventor's defense. He also saw to it that officers loyal to Leto were installed in key positions throughout the far-flung army in order to promote a smooth transition of power. In the aftermath, King Leto rewarded Turpin for his loyalty and strategic mind by elevating him to the rank of War Master. In the following years, Turpin was instrumental in reforming and modernizing the Cygnar army. Though his reputation has diminished in recent years due to the loss of Cygnar territory in Khador, he remains a loyal and steadfast member of the King's War Council. End addendum. The Cygnar Navy. The Cygnar Navy is a vital aspect of the kingdom's military, both because Cygnar boasts the longest stretch of continuous shoreline of any nation in the Iron Kingdoms, and because it has the dubious distinction of sharing the broken coasts with the Kingdom of Crix. The responsibility of protecting these waters and the vital shipping lanes between Cygnar's many ports falls to the Navy, which is commanded by Navach Govan Trent. Supervised from the Sentinel Point naval fortress south of Caspia, the Navy maintains officer training facilities separate from those of the Army. The Navy itself is divided up into 3 distinct fleets, each led by a Lord Admiral and served by several subordinate admirals. The Eastern Fleet, also known as the Caspian Fleet, is based out of Caspia and charged with patrolling the Gulf of Cygnar. The Southern Fleet, based in Highgate and entrusted to defend the southern peninsula and most directly threatened by the Cricks, and the Northern Fleet, based in Sorel and assigned to guard Cygnar's northern waters against any and all threats, most recently including the Cadoran Navy. The Southern Fleet, in particular, works closely with Cygnar's Third Army to protect from any Crixian attacks. Cygnar classes its warships according to a system of ratings. First-rate ships of the line are the largest naval vessels in all of Western Immoren, and typically are used by fleet admirals as flagships. Second and third-rate ships are somewhat smaller, but their superior maneuverability and considerable firepower makes them masters of naval combat. A, quote, lightly armed, unquote, third-rate ship of the line still bears 3 gun decks of more than 50 guns each on its port and starboard sides. Rated all the way down to the 6th, smaller ships like schooners, frigates, and corvettes comprise the reconnaissance and supply ships of the Navy itself. Almost all naval ships, no matter their age or class, are equipped with both sails and steam engines for transportation. Cygnar now boasts the most modern naval force to sail the Meridius. Its small but growing fleet of iron-hull warships, which are heavily armored and driven purely by steam, signals a move away from sail and hybrid power. The Cygnar Navy has even begun to commission highly advanced vessels such as the submersible Intruder and her sister, the Reliant. Though Ord still maintains a higher standard of training amongst its soldiers, Cygnar's vessels are still the wonders of the age. Addendum. Navash Govan Trent. The naval rank of Navash stands roughly equivalent to that of Cygnar's army's Warmaster. The Navash is the ultimate authority on naval matters. Indeed, fleet movements, requisitions, shipbuilding, and maritime troops all fall under the purview of Navash. He technically answers only to the king, though in reality his most serious decisions are reviewed by the War Council. Navash Govant Trent proved himself as an admiral of the Southern Fleet as well as in numerous engagements during the Scarred invasions. Elevated to the rank of Lord Admiral in the Southern Fleet, he stayed neutral during the events of the Lion's Coup, but his exemplary record saw him eventually promoted to the rank of Navash. He has since served ably, though some on the War Council might use the term adequately. In recent years, old age has begun to erode the Navash's motivation and capabilities, and he has frequently delegated his authority to the Archduke of Caspia, Lord Admiral Gaetan Sparholm III. It is likely only a matter of time until the Navash dies of old age or is gently retired by the king to be replaced by the Lord Admiral himself. End addendum. The Four Armies. Cygnar is a large nation in the unfortunate position of being surrounded by hostile powers. Each of the kingdom's 4 corners is isolated from the others as much as by an imposing geography as by distance, and many dedicated military personnel are required to defend the nation against immediate threats. In recognition of this fact, the overall Cygnaran army is divided up into 4 smaller armies, each tasked to defend a specific region. The First Army, the Northern Army. The First Army, also called the Thornwood Army, Northwatch, or the Northern Army has traditionally been shouldered the difficult responsibility of defending Cygnar's northernmost border against Cador. Since its establishment, this army has seen more combat than any of the other 3 armies combined. The fighting men and women of the First are rightfully proud of their singular expertise in battling Cygnar's northern rival. After the surrender of Lyell's capital in the summer of 605, most Cygnaran forces withdrew from the extensive network of border defenses along the northern edge of the Thornwood. Proving it was not content with swallowing Lyell, Khador assaulted Cygnar's border directly. The First Army stood strong for more than a year under the harshest conditions imaginable, reinforced continuously from the capital and elsewhere of Cygnar's interior. The vast networks of trenches and earthworks between the Northgard and the Khadoran fortress of Ravensguard saw frequent clashes. Northgard fought off a singularly massive assault orchestrated by Commandant Gulevant Idrisk in late 606, a battle unequaled for its unremitting violence and the losses absorbed by both sides. Though Cygnar won the day, it was by the narrowest of margins. Faced with war on three fronts, Cygnar was unable to fully restore this region's tattered defenses. Khador's second assault on Northgard was crushing, remarkable for the surgical precision by which the Khadorians breached Northgard's walls and completely overran Cygnaran positions. As General Adept Nemo evacuated as many personnel as possible from the fortress, General Hagen Cathmore remained behind to fight the Khadorians to his last breath. A brave but ultimately futile gesture. The smaller northern border fortress fell soon after Northgard, effectively moving Cygnar's northern border 200 miles south. With Northgard and Thornwood lost, the First Army endured the bleakest days in its history. However, despite the heavy casualties suffered across its ranks in this past year, these hardened border defenders remain determined to regain what was lost and prove they neither are cowed or broken. Lord General Duggan is stationed alongside the newly promoted General Shay Thurswell at Port Bourne, where they oversee the First Army's western forces. The eastern portion of the army is under the capable direction of Generals Sebastian Nemo and Galt Langworth at Corvus. Another significant concentration of the First Army soldiers operates out of Stonebridge Castle under the command of General Curlin Kreismore, formerly stationed at Deepwood Tower. Several members of Lord Commander Stryker's resurrected and reconstructed Storm Division have joined the defenders of this region. The First Army numbers about 210,000 soldiers, the largest concentration of Cygnaran troops ever mustered. The beleaguered state of the First Army has necessitated that reinforcements be sent from elsewhere. These include most notably and numerously a large contingent of the Fourth Army, one station farther west at Fortress Bolden, that now bolsters ports along the border. Not all officers in the First Army are happy with this arrangement, as the Fourth is suspected of numerous indiscretions, and its officers are not all that well trusted. Affording more hope than these Fourth Army additions is the presence of many of Cygnar's most esteemed and respected Warcasters. This deployment may shift if fighting should arise elsewhere, but for the moment, many of Cygnar's Warcasters stand alongside the First Army. Addendum. The Storm Division. Though Lord Stryker remains a beloved hero by the Second Army, his Storm Division has been granted autonomy from the normal chain of command. As part of the restructuring following the Caspian-Sul War, the Storm Division was reduced in size to suit its new role as a mobile strike force apart from the Second Army. Some troops were deployed elsewhere, such as the northern border, while others remained in Caspia to defend the capital. End Addendum. The Second Army. The Army of the Black River. The Second Army, also called the Caspian Army, the Eastern Army, or the Army of the Black River, defends the eastern border and maintains a large garrison at the capital and smaller forces at Fort Falk and East Wall. It has traditionally defended Corvus as well, but with the changes into the northern border, that city now hosts soldiers of the First Army. Several former Second Army battalions remain in the city, but were transferred to the First after the aftermath of the fall of the Thornwood to help shore up the defenses along the newly contested border. Though relying on a foundation of long gunners and trenchers, the Second Army also includes the largest portion of heavy infantry and cavalry in the Cygnaran army, including veteran storm and sword knights. Many ranking officers of these companies are the vassals of nobles sitting on the royal assembly. Because the Cygnar armory operates outside of Caspia, the Second Army also boasts substantial warjack support and often serves as the testing ground for new chassis and weapons design. Repair and resupply of these garrisons is considerably faster and easier than Cygnar's other armies, thanks to the commercial and industrial might of the capital. As with the kingdom's forces elsewhere, Cygnar's eastern border defenders have had to deal with constant strife and warfare over the last several years, a reality that has prompted widespread reorganization of personnel and continual recruitment to replace the fallen. The Second Army saw protracted action during the Caspia-Sul War between 606 and 607, a costly conflict that caused extensive damage to both cities. The Second Army has experienced a short but welcome reprieve in fighting since the death of Hierarch Vol, and Cygnar intelligence suggests that the Protectorate's leaders have shifted their focus from the Northern Crusade into the Northern Crusade in Eastern Lyell. Clashes north of Sul and Caspia have flared periodically and seem likely to continue. At present, Lord General Wigan Helster leads the Second Army from Caspia, where he maintains a regular contact with the Warmaster General. Lord Commander Stryker's famed Storm Division has been effectively removed from the Second Army's chain of command, and the new 8th Division has replaced Stryker's 6th, is led by General Astorius Halstead. Now that the Storm Division operates as its own entity, the Second Army currently counts approximately 84,000 soldiers in its rank. A sizable portion of the eastern border is watched by General Arlen Runewood, whose 7th Division is garrisoned at Eastwald. The northern patrols of this border report to General Cleland Ebenhard IV, who commands the 12th Division from Fort Falk, having moved his headquarters there from Corvus. The Third Army, the Army of the Worm Wall. Based out of Highgate, Cygnar's Third Army, also called the Southern Army, the Army of Highgate, or the Army of the Worm Wall, is responsible for protecting the southern shores, primarily from Crixian attack. No soldiers in Cygnar are better versed in Crixian fighting tactics than those in the Third, and it is from the officers of this army that Cygnar's generals seek advice on battling the horrors of the Nightmare Empire. Given the ability of Crixian forces to strike and vanish without warning, defending the coastline has always proved a challenge, and in recent years the threat has escalated to unprecedented levels. Cygnar's entire population appreciates the brave warriors who fight the terrors of Crix almost on a daily basis. Operationally, the Third is quite different from the other armies of Cygnar, as no other works as closely with the Cygnar Navy. In fact, Army and Navy personnel here are so tightly integrated and accustomed to working in joint operations. The admirals of the Southern Fleet stationed in Highgate answer directly to Lord General Vincent Goland, in addition to obeying their Lord Admiral, an unusual but effective arrangement. At times, vessels from both the Northern and Eastern fleets also join in on these operations. For 30 years, the Third Army has been led by Lord General Vincent Goland, Earl of Shield Point and Senior Knight of the Prophet. Though he is past his prime and suffers from poor health, Lord General Goland is a living legend among the Third, respected by both as a servant of Morrow and a determined enemy of Crix. Despite the esteem in which the venerable Lord General has held, some are eager for younger blood and fresher ideals. For now, Lord General Goland supervises the Army's complex fleet and land engagements from Highgate. Artillery garrisons exist in numerous forts along the western coast, with concentrations at Westwatch and the southern port of Mercier. General Boris Gately works closely with the Lord General and supervises the large 9th Division, which includes a majority of the Army's active service personnel, numbering approximately 73,000 troops and supply staff. Senior Commander Auslan Turpin, the granddaughter of the Warmaster General, commands the 14th Division, which includes both the reserves and battle-ready patrols to scour the Wormwall Mountains for threats to the realm. She has proven herself worthy of her responsibilities by demonstrating a shrewd logistical mind, through which she has achieves more with less. The Fourth Army, the Army of the Dragon's Tongue. Cygnar's Fourth Army, also called the Western Army or the Army of the Dragon's Tongue, is the smallest and least esteemed of Cygnar's armies, having historically been a reserve force numbering about 28,000 troops. Because Cygnar's king has considered it important to watch all borders, the Fourth Army is charged with patrolling the lands shared with Ord, a relatively friendly nation. Recent events have brought the Fourth Army out of the seclusion from Fort Bolden, and they will certainly play a significant role in the days ahead. As Cygnar's largest reserve force, the Fourth has inevitably been used as a dumping ground for undesirable or insubordinate soldiers who were branded troublesome but not incompetent enough to be booted from service. While some elements represent only a fraction of the army, the Fourth nonetheless counts more criminal behavior than the rest of the army as a whole, including incidents of extortion, graft, bribes, misallocation of military resources, looting, and violence against citizens. What is not known is that the ranking officers of the Fourth Army are involved in a potentially treasonous conspiracy with some of Cygnar's more powerful nobles. After the fall of Northgard and the loss of the Thornwood, the bulk of the Fourth Army were ordered east to reinforce Port Bourne, Stormbridge Castle, Corvus, and locations in between. A smaller force remains at Port Bolden under the direct command of General Gerlin Deckley to defend Sorel. Though the added manpower is appreciated by the beleaguered First Army, tensions between the soldiers of these two forces still linger. Service branches. Taking a combined arms approach to warfare, with an emphasis on ranged firepower, the Cygnaran army delivers unrelenting fire at a distance by employing numerous long gunners and trenchers, soldiers who form the backbone of the army and comprise the bulk of its numbers. Cygnar also maintains an impressive array of heavy infantry, including the famed Storm Knights. These armored fighters are use mechanically augmented weaponry to unleash the power of lightning on the kingdom's enemies. Support units include specialized soldiers like field mechanics who maintain the nation's warjacks, gun mages who carry firearms and the arcane arts to devastating effect, and the rangers of the Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service who are versed in scouting, tracking enemy movements, and coordinating strikes. Long gunners. Since the advent of the long gun, Cygnar has fielded skilled riflemen as part of its vast army. The introduction of repeating long guns with ammo wheels has made the modern long gunner the undisputed backbone of the Cygnaran army. Long gunners represent one of Cygnar's two primary infantry services, the other being the trenchers, and comprise the majority of Cygnar's rank-and-file soldiers. Trenchers. The men and women of the trenchers comprise the hardcore of enlisted soldiers of the Cygnaran army. Informally called grave diggers, they are the first on the field and often the last to leave. Trenchers form the bulk of any Cygnaran vanguard. Spread across trench lines and hastily dug emplacements, they seize ground and hold it, enduring weathering enemy fire and buying time for the rest of the army to advance. The standard trencher weapon is a heavy rifle set with a bayonet and supplemented by smoke grenades that obscure their advance. Trencher regiments are supplied by mobile light artillery teams and specialist units like commandos. In order to become a trencher commando, a soldier must complete a punishing training regimen taught by veteran instructors of the Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service. Such units specialize in irregular warfare and alternative weaponry. The trenchers began as an experiment by Cygnaran generals who wanted to see if harsh training might transform ordinary soldiers into hardened and more versatile fighters. The program's success made trenchers the cornerstone of the Cygnaran military. It also is the only service branch typically open to Cygnaran Trollkin and Orgrun who show patriotic inclinations. Storm Knights. Selected from the rank of enlisted and commissioned officers and soldiers, Storm Knights are galvanic warriors trained to fight in heavy plate armor that insulates them from the lethal currents of the weaponry they wield. Though several Storm Knights branches exist, most began their training as Stormblades, warriors marked by the crackling nimbus that surrounds them as they march to battle. The Storm Knights were founded by Leto Rawthorn during his time as Ventur IV's Warmaster General. Since then, they have earned a reputation as the most elite heavy infantry and cavalry in the service of the Crown. Storm Knights. Among the oldest of the knightly orders in Western Immoren and exclusively drawn from the Cygnar nobility, the Sword Knights have been a pillar of the Cygnar military for centuries. Unlike some other modern knightly orders, the Storm Knights fight only with their traditional weapons, the Caspian battle blade and shield. Upon a knight's acceptance into the order, he also receives a ceremonial blade to be kept with him at all times. He is expected to maintain this ornamental weapon throughout his life. It is never to be drawn in battle, and upon a valiant knight's death, the blade is buried alongside him to keep him safe in the wilds of Arcane. Addendum. Scout General Bolden Reball. To all appearances, Bolden Reball stepped back from active duty to take up the duties of Scout General, a position that requires him to monitor Cygnar's rangers, scouts, and military chroniclers, as well as to collect and coagulate their reports. In fact, Reball was immediately charged with developing a Cygnar information gathering network to replace Ventur IV's Inquisition. In the years since, the Scout General has established a kingdom-wide organization capable of quickly relaying sensitive information to his officers in Caspia. Though Reball has amassed a sizable intelligence network, his agents are spread thin. Even before the outset of the Lycian War, the reconnaissance service has barely been able to keep the Scout General and therefore the King apprised with the latest happenings abroad. Reball is one of the most difficult tasks in Cygnar, for he must not only bear the burden of controlling the nation's espionage and counter-espionage forces, but he must also do so in perfect secrecy. End addendum. The Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service. Traditionally, the Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service, or the CRS for short, was tasked with overseeing Cygnar's military scouts and cartographers. This remains its acknowledged function, and the majority of its personnel are rangers working alongside the military. Picked from the toughest and brightest the military has to offer, rangers are trained in methods of survival, stealth, and secret communication. They function in a wide variety of roles, including as covert strike forces, guides, and forward observers, typically in self-contained teams no larger than a squad. Their swift sergeants represent the pinnacle of their fighting ranks. Following the dissolution of the spy network formerly employed by King Ventur IV, which was dominated by the Inquisition, King Leto had broadened the purview of the CRS to also serve as Cygnar's intelligence gathering body. Its officers supervise the nation's convoluted network of spies, contacts, and informants, including covert agents. The king determined that the CRS would provide the bedrock by which a new clandestine organization would be built. To lead this organization, he created the rank of Scout General, a position that would report directly to the king and coordinate activities with the Rangers along with the office of Warmaster General. Bolden Reball has held the position since its inception. As Cygnar's premier spy agency, the CRS is interested in domestic and foreign affairs, anything that threatens the peace and welfare of the nation. It has succeeded in infiltrating trade, religious, and criminal organizations, as well as compromising foreign governments and military structures. Due to the shifting loyalties of informants, the CRS takes pains to substantiate intelligence, sometimes delaying the release of information until it can be confirmed. Agents in the field report to senior agents or ranking CRS handlers and are supported by networks of safe houses and secret arms caches within and without Cygnar. Field agents are tasked with creating personal networks of contacts and informants, including recruiting those who can work and live on foreign soil. They often rely on complex coded messages and other clandestine means of contact, and most hold ranks between lieutenant and major. Field agents are expected to report regularly to a liaison in order to keep information flowing and to receive orders. CRS colonels supervise the liaisons. CRS commissioned officers serve either as senior field agents or as leaders and analysts who coordinate the missions of junior field agents or military rangers. Addendum: Cygnaran military ranks. The basic rank structure of the Cygnaran army has remained largely unchanged for 2 centuries, barring small adjustments to specific branches and services. Though the fundamental purpose of the rank structure is to provide a clear chain of command, the Cygnaran army remains a large and complex organization. The army includes both enlisted soldiers and commissioned officers, with fraternization between the two strongly discouraged. Cygnarans who began their career as commissioned officers must first complete courses at the Strategic Academy. Enlisted personnel promoted to officers are also technically required to attend the Strategic Academy, though this duty is often postponed indefinitely. Very few trencher officers have risen through the ranks, for example, have ever attended the course at Port Bourne or even Caspia. An enlisted soldier is referred to as a recruit before he can earn the lowest rank of private by the end of his training. After a year of service, a private becomes a private first class, though this designation is primarily of interest only to payroll masters, as it conveys little additional authority. After proving competence, a private first class may earn promotion to corporal, the first grade of non-commissioned officers. Corporals direct small units of privates and are often entrusted to supervise firearm teams. Above corporals are sergeants, who lead squads formed from multiple fire teams and units. This highly respected rank encompasses several grades that vary by service and is the highest most soldiers can ever expect to climb, even for those with the military in their career. Officers in training are called cadets and graduate as lieutenants. Promotions above this rank is typically based on performance and the availability of positions. The actual role of a lieutenant varies considerably from one branch to the next. In larger infantry companies, such as that of the trenchers and long gunners, lieutenants lead entire platoons. Among the general infantry, captains lead companies, majors lead battalions, colonels lead large regiments, commanders lead brigades, and generals lead army divisions. Lord generals command 3 of Cygnar's 4 armies. Providing a single voice of authority above these generals is the Warmaster General, who enacts the king's will across the shared efforts of the entire army. Ranks include sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, colonel, commander, general, lord general, and Warmaster General. Warcaster battle groups. Cygnaran Warcasters enjoy tremendous operational freedom regardless of rank, moving from one battlefield to another, requisitioning warjacks, soldiers, and supplies as needed. Warcasters are never permanently attached to any single army division or company, though they frequently spend many months with the same units. Managing Warcasters can be difficult, but because they are irreplaceable military assets capable of ensuring victory even against the most impossible of odds, generals tend to handle them carefully and deliberately. Warcasters are accountable to the same code of conduct of honor and behavior as the rest of the military, but their superiors afford them much more flexibility in the pursuit of their duties. Some soldiers resent the standard, but most do not begrudge these battle masters their standing, particularly after witnessing their power firsthand. Though Warcaster talent manifests unexpectedly, tapping into its true potential requires years of training and discipline. Individuals displaying such power train at the Strategic Academy. Upon graduation, they become journeymen and receive the rank of lieutenant if they do not have the rank already or higher. Journeymen must complete a tour of service under the supervision of a senior Warcaster, a task that varies in length from 6 months to a year or longer, depending on the assessment of the mentor. After this tour, a Warcaster is promoted to captain and takes on the full authorities and responsibilities of his station. A Warcaster's latitude extends beyond his rank in several significant ways. Such soldiers frequently assume operational control in battle, even if that entails directing those who are otherwise outrank them. Furthermore, Warcasters enjoy considerable liberty when requisitioning warjacks, soldiers, and supplies, an ability that increases proportionally with their rank. In theory, a Warcaster commander can call up to 10,000 soldiers and control an entire brigade. A Warcaster captain might generally be limited to a company of several hundred men, but he will still be able to select more personnel and equipment than a comparably non-Warmaster captain. It is also not uncommon for a Warcaster of any rank to lead a small, customized strike force intended to achieve a specific objective. In such cases, the Warcaster will rely heavily on his warjack and his own personal abilities in order to achieve victory. Upon entering active service, a Warcaster receives a complement of warjacks, a supply train, and a support staff, which includes several experienced battlefield mechanics and their assistants. The Militant Order of the Arcane Tempest. For more than 2 decades, the gun mages of the Militant Order of the Arcane Tempest have trained in the art of harnessing the arcane through gunfighting. Whereas other gun mages may be Distanians in war, members of the Militant Order are hardened fighters trained for battle. The Militant Order grew out of the Tempest Academy, an adjunct of the Strategic Academy established by Warmaster General Karsten Landemore at the height of Ventur IV's reign, a perilous time for practitioners of magic. Once a cabal of arcanists who came together in the early days of the gun mage's craft, this organization was soon inducted as a true branch of the Cygnar army. Since then, the Militant Order of the Arcane Tempest has become an exceedingly professional and disciplined fighting force. Initiates of the Arcane Tempest undergo strenuous training at the Strategic Academy. All graduates are lethal marksmen, having mastered a variety of gun-based sorceries and small unit tactics before they earn the right to wield the mage-lock pistol and wear the distinctive uniform of the Arcane Tempest. These gun mages occasionally find themselves assigned as a specialized support unit to other branches of the military, often as members of unorthodox engagement teams. Addendum. Arcane ranks. The Strategic Academy bestows an additional rank to soldiers who have undergone arcane training, including gun mages, stormsmiths, arcane mechanics, and warcasters. Treated as honorifics, these ranks do not convey any military authority. In circumstances where the same rank arcanist specialists can cooperate on tasks related to their specialty, however, arcane ranks might determine who receives oversight. All military arcanists begin their journey and training as apprentices and end training as a journeyman. Journeyman status denotes an important probationary period during which theory is put into test and power is applied to the field. An individual who has completed his journeymanship is promoted to Magnus and becomes an acknowledged member of the arcane specialty. Few receive arcane ranks higher than this. Only those who have demonstrated exceptional power and control in a given field attains the rank of adept. The ultimate rank of prime is considered more rare. The latter title signifies singular acts of unequivocal genius. Strategic Academy arcane instructors meet annually to determine whether any existing magi deserve adept status, a confirmation that requires a majority vote. The rank of prime requires a unanimous vote from the arcane instructors of both the Strategic Academy facilities. The stringent process that led to criticism that the standards of these appellations are unreasonably high. However, the Academy Board insists the ranks would lose their prestige if more were awarded more liberally. Ranks: Apprentice, Journeyman, Magus, Adept, and Prime. End addendum. Stormsmiths. Many of today's most brilliant mechanical minds served in the Cygnar army. After being recruited for their aptitude and trained by the Strategic Academy, Stormsmiths emerged in the field of weather manipulation and galvanic thermology. Though many spend the bulk of their time engaged in theoretical research, the ultimate testing grounds for their lethal work is in the battlefield. Thus, most of them are only too happy to be summoned to march with the army, where they take pride in supporting both their research and their comrades with the practical application of galvanic force. Present circumstances. In 608, Cygnar finds itself in the unenviable position of facing war on multiple fronts. Though a temporary cessation of hostilities has allowed the kingdom a moment to catch its breath, the Cygnaran war effort has seen several setbacks in the recent months. Not only did the kingdom lose its great fortress of Northgard and later all of the Thornwood, but it also suffered fighting in the streets of its capital as it fought off invasions by the Protectorate forces. The Four Armies must cover too much ground, and only the patriotism of an unending stream of volunteers keeps Cygnar's forces running. Addendum. Unorthodox engagement teams. The soldiers of the Cygnaran army must often face bewildering and terrifying foes. Crixian necromancers commanding legions of mechanically augmented thralls, elemental sorcerers, the mysterious Scorn, and other unusual threats. When standard fighting forces are outmatched, it falls to the unorthodox engagement teams to redress the imbalance. UE teams are primarily composed of arcanists, veteran soldiers, and specialists, all drawn from multiple branches of the service. Some are standing teams constantly moved to confront threats, while others are assembled from their parent units in response to specific situations. Once activated, a UE team will respond rapidly, whether it is needed on the battlefield or far beyond enemy lines. Such teams often tangle with the covert forces of the Greylord Covens in battle over obscure ruins and often forgot artifacts. End addendum.